Hey guys, welcome back. During our questing in order to uncover Stormwind's corruption and the political intrigue, I have stumbled into Stor- I have stumbled into Stormwind's library, where I have discovered some books of lore. So let us go ahead and read a few of those and learn about the history of Azeroth. Alright, first book, here we go. The Kaldorei and the Well of Eternity. 10,000 years before the Orcs and humans clashed in their first war, the world of Azeroth cradled only the massive continent surrounded by the infinite raging seas. That landmass, known as Kalimdor, was home to a number of desperate races and creatures, all vying for survival amongst the savage elements of the waking world. At the dark continent's center was a mysterious lake of incandescent energies. The lake, which would later be called the Well of Eternity, was true heart of the world's magic and natural power, drawing its energies from the infinite great dark beyond the world. The well acted as a magical fount, sending its potent energies out across the world to nourish life in all its wondrous forms. In time, a primitive tribe of nocturnal humanoids cautiously made their way to the edges of the mesmerizing, enchanted lake. The feral nomadic humanoids, drawn by the well's strange energies, built crude homes upon its tranquil shores. Over time, the well's cosmic power affected the strange tribe, making them strong, wise, and virtually immortal. The tribe adopted the name Kaldorei, which meant children of the stars, in their native tongue. To celebrate their budding society, they constructed great structures and temples around the lake's periphery. The Kaldorei, or Night Elves as they would later be known, worshipped the moon goddess Elune, and believed that she slept within the well's shimmering depths during the daylight hours. The early Night Elf priests and seers studied the well with insatiable curiosity, driven to plumb its untold secrets and power. As their society grew, the Night Elves explored the breadth of Kalimdor and encountered its myriad denizens. The only creatures that gave them pause were the ancient and powerful dragons. Though the great serpentine beasts were often reclusive, they did much to safeguard the known lands from potential threats. The Night Elves believed that the dragons held themselves to be the protectors of the world, and that they and their secrets were best left alone. In time, the Night Elves' curiosity led them to meet and befriend a number of powerful entities, not the least of which was the Centaurs. A mighty demigod of primordial forest lands, the great-hearted Centaurs grew fond of the inquisitive Night Elves and spent a great deal of time teaching them about the natural world. The tranquil Kaldorei developed a strong empathy for the living forests of Kalimdor and reveled in the harmonious balance of nature. Yet, as the seemingly endless ages passed, the Night Elf civilization expanded both territorially and culturally. Their temples, roads, and dwelling places stretch across the breadth of the Dark Continent. Azshara, the Night Elf, beautiful and gifted queen, built an immense, wondrous palace on the well's shore and housed her favorite servitors within its bejeweled halls. Her servitors, whom she called Kaldorei or Highborn, doubted her every command and believed themselves to be greater than the rest of their lower caste brethren. Though Queen Azshara was loved equally by all of her people, the Highborn was secretly hated by the jealous masses. Sharing the priest's curiosity towards the Well of Eternity, Azshara ordered the educated Highborn to plumb its secrets and reveal its true purpose in the world. The Highborn buried themselves in their work and studied the well ceaselessly. In time, they developed the ability to manipulate and control the well's cosmic energies. As their reckless experiments progressed, the Highborn found that they could use their newfound powers to either create or destroy at their leisure. The hapless Highborn had stumbled upon primitive magic and were now resolved to devote themselves to its mastery. Although they agreed that magic was inherently dangerous if handled irresponsibly, Azshara and her highborn began to practice their spellcraft with reckless abandon. Centaurs and many of the Wisden Night Elf scholars warned that only calamity would result from toying with the clearly volatile arts of magic, but Azshara and her followers stubbornly continued to expand their burdening powers. As their powers grew, a distinct change came over Azshara and her highborn. The naughty, aloof upper class became increasingly callous and cruel towards their fellow night elves. A dark, brooding pall veiled Azshara's once entrancing beauty. She began to withdraw from her loving subjects and refused to interact with any but her trusted highborn priests. A young, brazen scholar named Fury in Stormrage, who had spent much of his time studying the well's effects, began to suspect that terrible power was corrupting the highborn and his beloved queen. Though he could not conceive the evil that was to come, he knew that the Night Elves would soon be changed forever. Book number 2: The Guardians of Trisfal. In the absence of trolls in the Northlands, the elves of Quel'Thalas spent their efforts towards rebuilding their glorious homeland. The victorious armies of Arathor returned home to Southlands of Storm. The human society of Arathor grew and prospered, yet Thoradin, fearful that his kingdom would splinter apart if it overextended itself, maintained that Storm was the center of the Arathorian Empire. After many peaceful years of growth and commons, mighty Thoradin died of old age, leaving Arathor's younger generation free to expand empire beyond the lands of Storm. The original 100 Magi, who were tutored in the ways of magic by the elves, expanded their powers and studied the mystic disciplines of spell weaving in much greater detail. These Magi, initially chosen for their strong wills and noble spirits, had always practiced their magic with care and responsibility. However, they passed their secrets and powers on to the new generation that had no concept of rigors of war or necessity for self-restraint. The young magicians began to practice magic for personal gain rather than out of responsibility towards their fellows. As the empire grew and expanded to the new lands, the new magicians also spread out to the southlands. Wielding their mystical powers, the magicians protected their brethren from the wild creatures of the land and made it possible for the new city-states to be constructed in the wilderness. Yet, as their powers grew, the magicians became even more concerned and isolated from the rest of society. The second Arthurian city-state of Dalaran was founded in the lands north of Storm. Many fielding Many fledgling wizards left the restraining confines of Storm behind and traveled to Dalaran, where they hoped to use their new powers with greater freedom. These magicians used their skills to build up the enchanted spires of Dalaran and reveled in the pursuits of their studies. The citizens of Dalaran tolerated the magicians' endeavors and built up a bustling economy under the protection of the magic-using defenders. Yet, as more and more magicians practiced their arts, the fabric of reality around Dalaran began to weaken and tear. The sinister agents of a burning legion who had been banished when the Well of Eternity collapsed were lured into the world by the heedless spellcasting of the magicians of Dalaran. Though these relatively weak demons did not appear in force, they did sow considerable confusion and chaos within the streets of Dalaran. Most of those demonic encounters were isolated events, and the ruling magocrats did what they could to keep such events hidden from the public. The most powerful magicians were sent to capture the elusive demons, but they often found themselves hopelessly outmatched by the lone agents of the mighty legion. After a few months, the superstitious peasantry began to suspect that their sorcerous rulers were hiding something terrible from them. Rumors of revolution began to sweep through the streets of Dalaran as the paranoid citizenry questioned the motives and practices of the magicians they had once admired. The Megacrats, fearing that the peasants would revolt and that the storm would take action against them, turned to the only group they felt would understand their particular problem: the elves. Upon hearing the Megacrats' news of demonic activity in Dalaran, the elves quickly dispatched the mightiest wizards to the human lands. The elven wizards studied the energy currents in the Dalaran and made detailed reports of all demonic activity that they beheld. They concluded that although there were only a few demons loose in the world, the Legion itself would remain a dire threat to as long as humans continued to wield the forces of magic. The Council of Silvermoon, which ruled over the elves of Kolthalas, entered into a secret pact with the Magocrats, lords of Dalaran. The elves told the Magocrats about the history of ancient Kalimdor and of the Burning Legion, a history which still threatened the world. They informed the humans that so long as they used magic, they would need to protect their citizenry from the malicious agents of the Legion. The Megacrats proposed the notion of empowering a single mortal champion who would utilize their power in order to fight a never-ending secret war against the Legion. It was stressed that the majority of mankind could never know about the Guardians or the threat of the Legion for fear that they would riot in fear and paranoia. The elves agreed to the proposal and founded a secret society that would watch over the selection of the Guardian and help to stem the rise of chaos in the world. The society held its secret meetings in the shadowed Trisfal glades, where the High Elves had first settled in Lordaeron. Thus, they named the secret sect the Guardians of Trisfal. The mortal champions who were chosen to be guardians were imbued with incredible powers of both elven and human magic. Though there would only ever be one guardian at a time, they held such vast powers that they could single-handedly fight back the Legion's agents whenever they were found in the world. The guardian power was so great that only a council of Chiswell was allowed to choose potential successor for the mantle of guardianship. Whenever a guardian grew too old, or worried of secret war against chaos, the council chose a new champion, and under controlled conditions, formally channeled the guardian power into the new agent. As the generations passed, guardians defended the masses of humanity from the invisible threat of the Burning Legion throughout the lands of Arathor and Quel'Thalas. Arathor grew and prospered while the use of magic spread throughout the empire. Meanwhile, the Guardians kept careful watch over signs of demonic activity. Book number 3: Aegwynn and the Dragon Hunt. As the politics and rivalries of the seven human nations waxed and waned, the line of Guardians kept its constant vigil against chaos. There were many Guardians over the years, but only one ever held the magical powers of Trisfal at any given time. One of the last Guardians of the Age distinguished herself as a mighty warrior against the Shadow. Aegwynn, a fiery human girl, won the approbation of Order and was given the mantle of guardianship. Aegwynn vigorously worked to hunt down and eradicate demons wherever she found them, but often questioned the authority of the male-dominated Council of Trisfal. She believed that the ancient elves and the elderly men who pressed over the council were too rigid in their thinking and not farsighted enough to put a decisive end to the conflict against the chaos. Impatient with the lengthy discussion and debate, she earned to prove herself worthy to her peers and superiors, and as a result frequently chose valor over wisdom in crucial situations. As her mastery over the cosmic power of Trisfal grew, Aegwynn became aware of the number of powerful demons that stalked the icy northern continent of Northrend. Traveling to the distant north, Aegwynn tracked the demons into the mountains. There, she found that the demons were hunting one of the last surviving dragonflights and draining the ancient creatures of their innate magic. The mighty dragons who had fled from the ever-advancing march of mortal societies found themselves too evenly matched against the dark magics of the Legion. Aegwynn confronted the demons, and with help from the noble dragons eradicated them. Yet, as the last demon was banished from the mortal world, a great storm erupted throughout the north. An enormous dark visage appeared in the sky above Northrend. Sargeras, the demon king and the lord of the burning legion, appeared before Aegwynn and bristled with hellish energy. He informed the young guardian that the time for Trisfal was about to come to an end, and the world would soon bow before the onslaught of the legion. The proud Aegwynn, believing herself to be a match for the menacing god, unleashed her powers against Sargeras' avatar. With this with disconcerting ease, Aegwynn battered the demon with her powers and succeeded in killing his physical shell. Fearing that Sargeras' spirit would linger on, Aegwynn locked the ruined husk of his body within one of the ancient halls of Kalimdor that had been blasted to the bottom of the sea when the Well of Eternity collapsed. Aegwynn would never know that she had done exactly as Sargeras had planned. She had inadvertently sealed the fate of mortal world, for Sargeras at the time of his corporeal death had transferred his spirit onto Aegwynn's weakened body. Unbeknownst to the young guardian, Sargeras would remain cloaked within the darkest recesses of her soul for many long years. Thank you guys for joining me as I discover Azeroth's history in the lore books held within the Stormwind's library. Hope to see you in the part 2.